Hi everybody, I hope this is working. We are going to be joined by Frank Camorra today, so one of my favourite chefs from Movida in Melbourne, which I'm sure many of you have frequented. I'm here at Bellwether in Camorra, and behind me here you'll see a poster that was done by Dave Byerly for an event that we did as part of the Adelaide Food and Wine Festival many years ago. So Amanda, James Pritchard, if you're watching. It was a wonderful event as part of that festival, right at the end of vintage. It was kind of crazy that I was trying to do it, but the first one that we did was catered, and this is the poster from that by the CWA. And it came out of a bunch of other friends, winemakers, that we were doing collaborative work together, so little guys working together to try and help get established. And we'd do these things called Sips in the City. And they were really well supported and quite good fun, and it did them in various cities. And in one of them we said, why don't we try and do one in the country? We all live in rural areas. Wouldn't that be fun? And some of the other winemakers were like, oh, who'd come? And I was like, God, in Camorra we go to the opening of an envelope. So I gave it a crack, and it seemed to make sense to get the CWA to cater, being country, and that classic country tradition that you bring a plate. And so each of the winemakers, rather than, banging on about how we least stir our Chardonnay or, hand pick or, shoot thin, we had to bake dessert. And the CWA ladies took it upon themselves to judge our desserts that day, which was not planned, but very entertaining. And if you're watching, or those of you that know the lovely Karina Wright from Oliver's Taranga in McLaren Vale, she won that day with her dear grandmother's lemon delicious dessert. But there was controversy. Kerry Thompson, the lovely KT from Clare, was disqualified because she made these little gem cakes, and cakes were not really considered a dessert. I think Kate Spencer's comment was barely a pudding. And of course the saddest one of the lot was Louise Hemsley Smith from Battle of Bosworth. All these people make great wines, by the way, but we are brought to our knees when it comes to making desserts. And Louise made a pavlova, and Kate didn't even taste it. She just looked at it and said, oh, too grainy, and walked right on by. And I think Louise might still be crying into her teaspoon about that one. So fast forward a year, and I was up at the Alternative Varieties Wine Show, a fantastic show that was started primarily by the Chalmers and Mark Walpole and some other people, but big shout out to Helen Healy and the Chalmers family for everything they do for that fantastic show. And it's in Mildura, it's in November, it's a great time of the year. And we had a dinner or lunch served on a boat travelling down the River Murray, and it couldn't get more iconically Australian. Served by Stefano and Frank Camorra. So here we had, Italian, Spanish inspired food being served in the middle of Australia on a paddle boat going down the River Murray, flanked by gum trees. It's just something that really, to me, typifies everything that Australia is with regards to food, wine, culture, outdoors. And afterwards I was having a beer because, after you've had a lot of wine and food, beer can be quite refreshing, particularly in Mildura in November. And so I was up at the Grand Hotel enjoying a beer with Frank and his then sommelier. And she said, oh, Frank, you should go to Bellwether, you should cater Sips in the Sticks. And I was kind of laughing because so far I'd had the CWA and then our beautiful local Afghan ladies cater. And then we got Frank Camorra over having a beer, and he agreed to it. And even the next day after waking up, not with beer, Frank still agreed to it. So he came to Camorra a few months later and did Sips in the Sticks for us, which was a great day and lots of fun. And it's just wonderful to see different chefs in your garden, in your region. So I always get the ingredients locally for all the chefs that do it, and then they add their flair, you know. And of course, with Frank coming from Movida, he bought some pretty special ingredients from Movida too. And a funny moment was meeting him at the airport. I had a car for him because we didn't have our kitchen fully prepared here at that time. And we were using the Camorra hall kitchen as well, so needed some transport. And so I just hired a station wagon, and that upgraded him to a Pajero. So any of you that know Spanish might know what Pajero means. So that wasn't the greatest way to meet Frank Camorra, with a car that says "Hi, wanker." But Frank definitely isn't. He's a really down-to-earth, great guy, and it was a lot of fun. And every time I go to Melbourne, I drop into Movida. It really is. It's a place to me that did change the culture of how we eat food in Australia. That type of thing that you can just drop in and have a taste and a glass of wine. And we have places like that all over Australia now, and it's wonderful. Sadly, they're all closed. So they've had to adapt, and so I thought it would be great to hear from Frank, the master, to hear how he has adapted and coped with COVID. So I'm going to go. I've got some quinces here and some figs from the garden. So I'm going to practice my dessert for the next Sips and the Sticks challenge, which finally one day I'm going to win. See you later, people.
Hi, I'm Frank Camorra. Thanks so much, Sue, for the introduction and for the car that you got for me. All right, guys. So yeah, I think Sue just wanted me to speak a little bit about sort of the experience that, from the perspective of as a restaurateur, and how we been dealing with the issue of COVID and the closure of the restaurants, and how that sort of is progressing in our business and with our staff as well. So I'll just sort of give you a little bit of background from how I've experienced it. I was overseas in mid-March for 2 to 3 weeks. I was actually in Mexico, actually researching a new restaurant that we wanted to get off the ground later this year. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. But at that moment, we sort of started seeing that things are changing very quickly. And you know, one of the major turnarounds was the fact that Tom Hanks, once he got it, I sort of started realising how serious it was. And then I knew it was incredibly serious once the restaurants in Spain had closed, because they don't close for anything really. So we were stuck, my business partner and myself were stuck overseas in Mexico. We decided to come straight back through LA, which is an experience in itself. Once we got back here, we were 2 weeks in quarantine, self-isolation, forced quarantine. So that was the real challenge. It was, I don't know how I can explain it. It was just so incredibly frustrating to have the issue of closing our restaurants that we'd built over so many years, while we couldn't even be there and talk directly face to face with our staff. So there was a lot of phone conversations, Zoom conversations, text messages, and and then the final day came when we closed everything down, which was it was actually very heartbreaking, to be honest, because you know, I'm sure everyone has that experience of building something and then having to close it down, which felt really harsh. So my initial thoughts at that stage were, okay, well, all we really can do is hibernate and just put ourselves in sort of a slow hibernation, which would allow us to reboot maybe 3 to 6 months down the track. That was the initial idea, and then I guess once we realised that, not having a project, seeing that our staff were suffering, not only financially, but also they were suffering because they just didn't have any sort of goals, just like ourselves, there was nothing to do each day. So we thought, okay, our initial thoughts were we weren't going to do any takeaway offer, because, I personally don't think Uber is sort of a sustainable model. 30% of your income goes to the Uber company, 30% of the price of the item. So we sort of started thinking about how we can do this with our own resources, and sustainable and profitable enough that we can maintain it for, well, who knows how long, months possibly. So all we came up with was an idea called a menu del dia, which translates in Spanish to menu of the day. So I don't know if any of you have been to Spain, but when you go there, you'll see that just about every restaurant, every bar does what's called a menu del dia, and basically it's a accessibly priced comfort food, things that people want to eat for lunch, and it's the main food in Spain, or the main dinner or lunch meal, is during lunchtime. So that was our concept. We'd do something that was in that style, so it was in the style of our brand, but it wasn't restaurant-y at all. It was accessible, it was generous, great value, and we made it big enough, so we decided we'd have the menu cover 3 breakfasts, 3 lunches and 3 dinners over 2 days. Over 3 days for 2 people, and what we found became really successful. I mean, it's just it's grown because of that personal sort of touch from us. So we curate the menu, we make the food, and our staff are delivering it themselves, and we're getting people order over and over again. So I think we started with like 60 menus a week the first week, and over the last 5 weeks we've sort of increased that up to 200 menus a week, which is, and we only do it over 3 days. So it's manageable. It's actually been the best thing about it has been the fact that you see your staff come in and they've actually got a smile, and I've never seen staff so happy to work in my entire life, to be honest. It's one of the best feelings that I've had in my entire career, is actually seeing how all the staff have sort of been enthusiastic about being involved in whichever way they can, and we're stuck to mostly front of house doing the deliveries, and obviously kitchen doing the food, and everyone's just happy to pitch in and do whatever is necessary. So that's been amazing. We'll continue doing that. I don't think that by any means it's the answer to what's happening, and who knows how long this will go. But I mean, one of the other things we've had the opportunity to do is, along with our restaurants, we also have a wine importing and distribution company, which is called Alimentaria. So Alimentaria was 90% directed to on-premise wine sales and some food sales, but mostly on-premise wine sales. And that collapsed overnight, and I'm sure that many of the winemakers of Camorra would understand that, and Sue would understand that as well. Restaurants just aren't buying wine. So we already had a website which we were sort of directing towards the general public, and this really started working. It was really the direct sales to customers, where we put packs in together. So one of our first packs was our Sommelier by the Glass pack. So wines that we would normally have through the restaurants, of different restaurants, Spanish wines by the glass, at a really, again, a very accessible price. And I think that's the key, is making things really accessible and well priced. And it just went really well. So we sold, hundreds of these packs, and then we went to a Tempranillo pack. We're working on a Mother's Day pack for next week. So rather than selling wine by one, we're sort of putting something together that sort of feels right and people are happy to support. I think at this stage, people are wanting to, they're empathetic to restaurants, producers, people that've enjoyed their product for a long time, and they're really wanting to support these businesses, and I think the opportunity is there to do it. Ongoing, I don't know obviously, we would like to keep all these opportunities open, but, as Sue was saying earlier on, what we built our business on is that style of service where you do feel welcome when you come in and have a glass of wine and a bite to eat, and you can pop in and out. And I don't really know if restaurants, bars are going to be in that situation or offer that style of food service, where it is sort of a lot more casual, because I think once we go back, it's going to be very much that one person per 4 square metre rule, which may continue on for whoever knows how long. And that's going to be the difficulty for our business concept, is the fact that we really do rely on foot traffic. and we rely on lots of people coming in and spending a little bit less than what most sort of fine dining restaurants would expect. So the model may have to change. We're not really sure yet. It depends what happens. But I think one thing that we've learned from this whole situation is that we can adapt. We'll have to adapt, but I think it's important as well as that to maintain the essence of what you do well. So I think that's what we've tried to do well with the menu of the year pack is do that style of food, Spanish food, but just make it in the context of the situation we're in now, where people want something more comforting, more accessibly priced, and they're willing to support you. So I think that's pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to thank Sue for having me on, and hopefully I get to come to Sipping the Sticks again. Really enjoyed it last time. It's been a few years, and so hopefully get to cooking the Camorra sooner rather than later. Okay, thank you everybody. I'll sign off now.